What's up, guys and gals? It's your boy Tyromaniac, back with another smoking hot video.
Oh, it's perfect.
There you go, use that as your intro.
So I guess if I was gonna start, which I guess that's what we're doing.
By all means.
Alright, so I guess the thing I was just gonna talk about was obviously the big reveal of episode 6. Maybe not reveal, but the big event, you know, the thing everybody's gonna be talking about, all the clickbait, the thumbnails and the titles and all that.
Every single thumbnail, the same image.
Yeah, all of them.
Exactly. All of them. All just V saluting in that hallway. So we're going to be talking about V's death because I haven't done a review in a while and I'm getting a little sick of the people not hearing my opinions.
Everyone wants our opinions, we all know that.
I was wondering if you were going to make another review at some point.
I know I'm going to make one for the end of the series, I just don't know if I'm going to do one between. So, because it's not really something they built up to in the episode, if it makes sense. Like, it almost feels like it came out of nowhere, because...
We got like 3 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, and it's like you look at how she's been acting like in every episode up until this, and she's not really like the sacrifice type, if that makes sense, because like everything she does for herself in some way, usually. Where it's like when she was killing worker drones, it wasn't because JC Jensen told her to, it's because she loved it. Like she, you know, massive sadist, she was just doing it because she wanted to.
Only thing she did for someone else was when she cut N's head off in episode 3.
Yeah, she hasn't really shown any evidence of, like, caring for anyone else except for N throughout the series, and then when you get to episode 6, she suddenly cares about Uzi.
Really? Like, because she just randomly turns around and it's like, Uzi, I trust you, and then meanwhile, 2 episodes earlier, she was literally trying to kill Uzi for being possessed by the Absolute Solver.
Also, right, that comes like 5 minutes after she watches Uzi blow a hole in the wall.
Right.
And just like completely lost control of her powers.
Yeah, the entire episode was missing that, like, the element of her, like, gaining Uzi's trust and Uzi trusting her. There was no relationship built between the two of them throughout the entire episode.
Right, and it's like the entire series, too, because the only interactions we really saw them have were, like, literally confrontational, where it's like she hated Uzi pretty much the entire time, like, every step. It was, like, again, in episode 4, it was, she basically just saw Uzi as, like, Sin coming back to Copper 9, and so that was really, like, the only interaction they've had so far.
I think Liam just needed, because every single one of the episodes ended off on, like, a big cliffhanger note. And so, kind of like in the final hour, V has kind of been a character that has not really had a concrete place in the show ever since she was introduced. She's like, her only purpose throughout the entire series has been kind of hinting at Sin. But then by episode 5, once Sin has been revealed, she doesn't really have a purpose in the show anymore. So all you can really do with that character is just like make her a sacrifice so it has a good cliffhanger for the episode.
It's weird where she just kind of like gave up. Like she cut the rope and she gave up because it seemed like she could have easily at least taken out a few of them. Like with how easily she dealt with the one.
Yeah, like she decked the one in like 10 seconds, the other ones surround her, and one, she doesn't jump straight into the elevator, which I still think is ridiculous.
She could have just jumped up too. They can't fly, she can.
Yeah, she just like completely gives up, which I think is either just like really strange thing for her to do or just lazy writing.
This is the same character who used to make balloon animals out of just basically innocent civilians. Like, so now you have these things that are trying to kill her. She has like an excuse to fight back and she's just not doing it.
Like, they're in a hallway, right? It wouldn't be too hard for her just to shoot a rocket at the ceiling and collapse the entire hallway to like keep the sentinels out. It really does like just feel like they had to have something to end that episode off on.
Yeah, like she does have like the hyper death laser. She can just point it straight forward and then just spin in a circle.
That's also another thing that I really hate about that episode is she fires one shot in the whole thing and she misses.
I don't even remember her shooting.
It was like in the final 30 scenes with the elevator. She shot, but she missed the sentinel, and then she did the whole tail grab thing, which is now my wallpaper.
Well, there was one too, and she like caught the. That was cool though when she just caught the bullet.
Yeah, like that's like I think a lot of people have mentioned, the entire power level of the disassembly drones has been pretty inconsistent. Because if you have fast enough reaction time to catch a bullet,
there's not a lot that's gonna stop you, yeah.
Yeah, at that point you could probably fight off some like raptors pretty easily, especially with the arsenal she's been given.
Right, and I think giving them the, like, I don't know what you would call it, but just like that Medusa vision they have where they just freeze anyone who... The boot loop, basically, I think is what they called it. But I think giving them that was like their way of explaining like how the murder drones wouldn't be able to fight them, where it's like, oh, we can't see them, they can't look at them, otherwise they just get boot looped, so it makes it harder for them to fight.
But we're gonna let her put on the glasses and then fight them properly.
Many people have already pointed out that like the disassembly drones don't even see through like the front of their face. They see through that headband thing on top of them, right? They have no way of covering that.
There's that concept art where it literally shows like the headbands and it goes through, it's like infrared, UV, and then two of them are just whatever is convenient for the plot.
I think they might have dumped that though, because if you look through episode 4, when En's got that hat on, it covers all of them.
That's true.
So like if that is how he's seeing, unless he's just like using the infrared thing to see straight through the hat, which is possible.
There was like a quick moment. It was kind of a moment that like blink and you miss in episode 6 when they're walking down the hallway, when like right before En and Uzi hold hands, you can actually see through her like vision, and you see there's multiple monitors of like ranging around her. Like she can see like behind her and to like the side of her without looking that way. So I think they did actually keep that part of like them seeing through the headband.
I don't know, but the point is, right, like, it just feels like there's a lot more she could have done to not let herself get killed. But I think you're right that they just kind of needed something to end the episode off on, like some sort of cliffhanger, and they just figured this was the best way of doing it.
I guess the question now is she going to come back, and how?
Yeah, so if they do bring... I mean, obviously, they can come back as the entire Eldritch J kind of creature. So there's that. They're cloned. Like, there's plenty of ways. There's already 2 ways for them to come back. So I don't see how it's possible for her not to come back at this point.
Well, there's also...
Especially when they go over.
There's also, you go first.
I was just going to say, especially because they highlight both of them, like, in the episode as well. So it's just like, surely they're going to use one of them.
Yeah, both ways of them coming back. Yeah, they're both mentioned in the same episode as she dies in.
Yeah, and there's also, I thought about this too, the number of times En has been decapitated and then just got back up. Or like, remember episode 3 when Doll, I don't know if they were like ceiling fans or whatever, but she just like ripped them to shreds. Like they had arms all over the place, they were like giant gashes in their torsos, and they just got back up.
Yeah, it just took them a minute to repair themselves.
There was that scene in the hallway at the beginning of episode 6 where it's like it showed all the ripped apart murder drones, so that could be. But they also would have had like that little worm thing removed, because we had the
oven full of them.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you just keep them in the oven and you just let them bake. It's fine.
But even then, like with all those disassembly drone corpses everywhere, if she does end up morphing and she needs material to repair herself, like the Absolute Soul is supposed to do, it's literally right there. Like they don't have to make it out of murder drone left or worker drone leftovers. They can have like full-on disassembly drone bodies to use, and plenty of them too.
Look, if Sin can put them together in her basement, then I think V can probably do it by herself too.
And then I guess the question would be, once they've done that, what does the tentacle crab thing do? Does it just blow itself up, or what happens?
I figured it just like hides in their chest.
I know, Vanity, you're probably going to talk about this in your section, like what's happening in future episodes. Actually, no, I'm probably going to save it for then, just because I don't want to infringe on your territory there.
I mean, if it's directly related to V, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, like, what they would do with V if they brought her back. Because I'm thinking this whole thing with, like, Uzi being possessed by the Absolute Solver now, where it's like, I don't know if that's what it is, but to me it looks like Sin is kind of taking her over, where it's like, every once in a while Sin will pop in and just be like, oh hey, I'm in control now. And so it seems like that's gonna be, like, end up being the final conflict. And then V is gonna be basically like, she's either gonna show up as herself or as the Eldritch Crab thing, and is just gonna be, like, helpful in the final fight against that.
Well, that's kind of like the biggest issue with V's character. Like I said, she doesn't really have much of a purpose throughout. Like, there's not much left for her to do other than, like, fight. They could, like, resolve the entire N and V romance if they really wanted to. but it seems like with the Uzi and N ship going on like full blown at this point, it feels like it just isn't necessarily to address anymore. Since it was kind of retconned, they barely acknowledge it throughout the entire show.
It was mostly just in the pilot and then nothing else.
Yeah, because V in the pilot was again, there was like that one line of like N saying like, oh yeah, I have a crush on her, but don't tell her anything. And then she was just kind of the killer. Like she just was the best at killing worker drones, and she enjoyed it. And then once they stopped, killing worker drones, there wasn't really much for her to do other than just fight.
Yeah, so even if they do bring her back, which they probably will, I just can't imagine in a way where it doesn't feel cheap or obvious or like it was necessary at this point, because we don't really need her anymore in the show.
But then you're going to make a lot of people mad if you just don't bring her back at all.
Right, I hate there was the merch post they made on their community page that Glitch did. I just checked the comments and all of them were just V better come back, like V better not be dead. It was like every comment was just that.
This is Liam Vickers, and in case you've listened to SSTWL, he does have a reputation of being pretty. He's not afraid to shy away from being brutal with his characters.
I was actually going to mention that here because that was one thing I was thinking kind of after watching the episode, where it's like, for me personally, V's death didn't hit nearly as hard as Vanity. I know Uncom hasn't, but Vanity, have you watched Black Dogs or Design?
Oh yeah. Black Dogs is exactly what I'm thinking of when I think of
right. Because Uncom, do you have any plans on watching either of those? Does it matter if we spoil it for you?
Probably not. I've watched a few videos just talking about them, so I'm relatively spoiled already. So go ahead.
Yeah, so Black Dogs specifically is the big one where it was that was the first time that was the first SSTWL thing I watched, and I think it was the Styx Hound was after them, right? It had just climbed up, that had cornered them in the hallway, and Hayes was just all right, you go ahead, get to the place we need to go. I'm just gonna stay here and distract it, and it just runs forward and cuts her in half, basically. And that hit hard.
Yeah, and that was kind of the actual. She wasn't dead, but they never really recovered after that. They're never really the same after that, especially with the way that series ended.
Oh yeah, and then it was either the end of that part or the next part where it was he was running into the basement, John was, and he looked back and Hayes was just standing there at the bottom of the staircase, basically dead, as a puppet of the Styx Hound completely. And that, it wasn't even so much the actual death, it was that where I was just oh, this is
The Styx Hound is basically the absolute solver.
Now, see, why did you have to make me think about that?
They share the same exact purpose in how they work. They just control a person who's dead at that point. That's all. They do the same thing.
Well, then you have that, and then the left hands from Design, and then the cube from Internetian Cube, where it's all.
I'm starting to see a pattern in how Liam Vickers writes things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can see the patterns pretty quickly. He always does try to keep things hard to predict, but he does have tropes that he likes to reuse.
Yeah, I don't know. You've kind of stepped back and you realize Design, Internetian Cube, and Murder Drones are kind of just retelling the same basic premise.
Yeah, John, the nervous, kind of nerdy, male character, and then the quirky female character. That has been the story he's told ever since he started doing, his own series.
Right, and you can just kind of take that mold and apply it to just every series.
But overall, I think killing off V was a pretty poor move, despite everything that I've already mentioned in, this video and my video. If they bring her back, she doesn't really have anything to do. But if they don't bring her back, then the community is going to be upset, and it will feel like she's an unresolved character. Yeah, she didn't really, throughout the entire series, she didn't really have the impact or the payoff to everything that was built up since episode 1. And she just feels like a wasted character at this point, and then if they bring her back, it's just a cheap, nothing character at that point.
The thing is, though, if it is a fake-out death, it is a fake-out death with a lot of effort put into it. Because, they had this whole symphony organized. They gave her that whole salute moment. They have merch for it. They have, that one, stained glass thing of, V shooting down at the Sentinel.
Did any of you guys buy that?
I haven't bought a single thing of merch. I'd want to buy that one shirt where it's just, Uzi and N.
I've dropped like $400 into glitch merchandise at this point.
Bro.
I'm wearing my Murder Drones hoodie right now.
A true fan.
I need to... Is this how you got so many subs? Do I need to start buying the merch?
I don't know, mate. Just be around Murder Drones long enough and eventually, I don't know, something happens.
Uncom, do you have any ending opinions on like what they should do with V if they were to bring her back?
If they were to bring her back, honestly, I don't really know of a good way to do it at this point, because we've only got 2 episodes left, right? So if they bring her back in the next one, there's not really any payoff to the death itself. And if they bring her back in the finale, then there's not really any time for her to do anything other than just like engage in a fight scene or something, which I guess has kind of been what she does the whole series. But
That'd probably be what they do, actually, thinking about it. I could see, like, it'd be whatever the final fight ends up being. It's like they think they've lost, and then V just flies in out of nowhere, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm back, and then just helps them win.
And then dies again. And that's how the series ends, is she dies again.
They get to make more merch.
sacrifices herself, we get more salutes and more clickbait.
Alright, well I think that about covers V, unless you guys have any closing statements.
No, I'm all good.
We just about ran through everything on my list, so